Commander Tae-ho stared at the small planet spinning slowly below his ship. Haven 7 looked dead from space. The scanners showed no cities, no lights, no signs of the busy life that once filled human worlds. Just brown dirt, dying forests, and empty oceans under gray clouds. "Sir, we're getting a weak signal," said his communications officer. "It's coming from the northern continent." Tae-ho nodded. The Altarian Deep Space Patrol had been checking old human worlds for 300 years. Now, most were completely empty. Some had ruins. A few had wild animals that had taken over the abandoned cities. But Haven 7 was different. The computers said people might still be alive here. "Take us down," Tae-ho ordered. The patrol ship Morning. Star dropped through the atmosphere. Below them, Tae-ho could see a small settlement near a dried-up river. A few metal buildings, some farming fields, and maybe 50 people working outside. Smoke came from chimneys. Gardens grew vegetables. Children played in a dusty yard. The last humans in this sector of space, Tae-ho's ship landed in an open field outside the settlement. The engines made clouds of dust that blew across the farming plots. He watched through the window as the humans stopped their work and came to look at his ship. They moved slowly, carefully. They had seen alien ships before. "Stay with the ship," Tae-ho told his crew. He grabbed his translation device and walked down the landing ramp alone. A woman came forward to meet him. She was about 40 years old, with short black hair and clothes patched many times. Her hands were dirty from working. In the gardens, she looked tired, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "I'm Soo-jin," she said in basic galactic. Her accent was strange, but Tae-ho could understand her. "Are you here to help us or move us away?" "Commander Tae-ho, Altarian Patrol," he replied. "We heard your emergency signal. How many people live here?" Soo-jin looked back at her settlement. Men, women, and children had gathered near the buildings. They watched the alien commander with curious but worried faces. 47 people, Soo-jin said. "We were 200 when we first came here. That was 60 years ago." Tae-ho felt sorry for them. 60 years of slow dying on this forgotten world. What happened to the others? Sickness. Accidents. Old age. The medical machines broke down 15 years ago. Our power systems are failing. The water recyclers don't work well anymore. Soo-jin pointed to the children playing nearby. "Those kids have never seen a real city or traveled between stars. This dead world is all they know." A man with gray hair joined them. He carried a medical scanner that looked very old and worn out. "This is Jin-woo, our doctor," Soo-jin said. "He keeps us alive with whatever medicine we can make from local plants." Jin-woo shook Tae-ho's hand. "Commander, can you tell us what happened to Earth? To the other human colonies? We lost contact with everyone during the Void War. Our communication array was destroyed in a harvester attack 300 years ago. We've been alone ever since." Tae-ho had read the reports. Every Altarian officer knew the story. The harvesters had been a nightmare that swept across the galaxy like a plague. They were creatures that ate entire planets, turning worlds into empty rocks. Humanity had fought them harder than any other species, but in the end, even the humans couldn't stop them. "I'm sorry," Tae-ho said quietly. "Earth fell during the final harvester assault. The Sol system is gone. The other human colonies went silent one by one. We think most of your people died fighting the harvesters. You might be some of the last humans alive in the galaxy." Soo-jin's face didn't change, but Tae-ho saw pain in her eyes. Jin-woo put his hand on her shoulder. "We feared that was true," Jin-woo said. "But we hoped some colonies survived, some hidden worlds where humans still lived. If they exist, we haven't found them," Tae-ho replied. "The Altarian Republic and the Keth Consortium have been exploring old human space for centuries. We've found ruins, empty stations, and a few survivors like you, but no functioning human worlds." Soo-jin walked over to a broken fountain in the center of the settlement. The stone was cracked and filled with dirt instead of water. She touched the edge gently. My grandmother helped build this fountain, she said. She told me stories about Earth. Green forests, blue oceans, cities that touched the clouds. She said humans would explore every star in the galaxy someday. Your people were brave explorers, Taeho said. The galaxy remembers that. But we're finished now, aren't we? Sujin asked. 47 people on a dying world. When we're gone, there won't be any more humans anywhere. Taeho activated his communication device. I can offer you transport to Altarian worlds. We have programs to help refugee species. You would have food, medicine, safe places to live? Sujin shook her head. What if other humans are still out there? What if they come looking for us and find empty worlds? Someone should stay. Someone should keep watching the old communication frequencies. Ma'am, the chances of finding other survivors are very small, Taeho said gently. But not zero, Sujin replied. Not impossible, Jinwoo nodded. We've survived this long by hoping. We can survive longer. Taeho looked around the settlement. The buildings needed repair. The farming equipment was old and breaking down. The people looked thin and tired. But they were still alive, still human, still hoping. I'll leave emergency supplies, he said. Medicine, food, power cells, and I'll put Haven 7 on the regular patrol route. We'll check on you every few months. Thank you, Sujin said, as Taeho walked back to his ship. He heard the children playing behind him. They were singing an old human song about traveling to distant stars. The words were in an ancient Earth language he didn't understand, but the melody was sad and beautiful. Inside his ship, Taeho sat down to write his report. He typed slowly, choosing his words carefully. Haven 7 survey complete. 47 human survivors confirmed. Population declining due to equipment failure and limited resources. Subjects refuse relocation. Recommend regular supply drops and continued monitoring. Status: functionally extinct species with minimal surviving population. He sent the report to Altarian Command and ordered his crew to prepare for departure. As the morning star lifted off from Haven 7, Taeho watched the small settlement grow smaller below him. In a few years, maybe sooner, those people would be gone. Then there would be no more humans anywhere in the galaxy. The age of humanity was ending with a whisper, not a roar. Boram checked her scanner again as she walked through the empty corridors of Kepler Station. The numbers didn't make sense. According to her readings, someone had been here recently. Very recently. But that was impossible. Kepler Station had been abandoned for over 200 years. The young Keth surveyor stopped at a junction where 3 hallways met. Her helmet lights showed scratches on the metal walls. Fresh scratches, the kind made by tools, not by time or weather. This is wrong, she whispered to herself. Boram was part of the Keth Archaeological Survey. Her job was simple. Go to old human sites, catalog what was left, and mark them for salvage or destruction. The Keth Consortium had been doing this work for decades. Most human installations were just empty buildings full of broken machines, but Kepler Station felt different. It felt like someone had been taking care of it. She walked deeper into the mining facility. The main power was dead, but her scanner showed energy signatures in the lower levels. Small power sources, carefully hidden. Emergency lighting that shouldn't work anymore. Life support systems that had been quietly repaired. Boram reached the central lift shaft and looked down. Her light couldn't reach the bottom, but she could hear something far below, a soft humming sound like machines working. She activated her communication device. Survey base, this is Boram. I need to report something strange at Kepler Station. Static crackled in her helmet. Go ahead, Boram. What did you find? Signs of recent activity. Fresh tool marks, active power sources, possible equipment modifications. Someone has been maintaining this facility. A long pause. Then her supervisor Kang Min's voice came through the comm. Boram, you're in the middle of empty space. The nearest inhabited system is 50 light-years away. Are you sure your scanner is working correctly? Boram looked at her readings again. Energy signatures, metal fragments with fresh cut marks, dust patterns that showed recent foot traffic. Yes, sir, I'm sure. Someone has been here in the last few weeks. Maybe days. Human survivors? Kang Min asked. I don't know. The modifications look human, but some of the technology is different, more advanced than what humans had before they disappeared. Another pause. Complete your survey and return to base. We'll send a full team to investigate later. Boram continued exploring the station, but the deeper she went, the more confused she became. In the engineering section, she found control panels that had been completely rebuilt. The new circuits were beautiful and complex, unlike anything in the Keth databases. The work was too perfect, too precise for human hands. In the mining tunnels, she discovered something that made her stop breathing. A message beacon, small and silver, attached to the wall of the deepest shaft. It was broadcasting on a frequency her scanner couldn't identify. The signal was strong and clear, but her equipment couldn't decode it. Boram carefully removed the beacon and put it in her sample container. Whatever message it was sending, someone else needed to see it. 3 days later, Boram sat in Kong Min's office on the Keth trade station Prosperity. Her supervisor was a large, gray-skinned Keth with kind eyes and careful hands. He had been studying her report for an hour. Boram, I've reviewed your findings, Kang Min said slowly. The tool marks could be explained by automated repair systems. The power sources might be backup generators that finally activated, and this beacon, he held up the silver device. This could be old human technology we don't recognize. Sir, I know what I saw. Someone was living in that station, taking care of it. The modifications weren't random repairs. They were improvements. Kang Min set down the beacon and looked at his young surveyor. Even if you're right, what does it matter? 47 humans live on Haven 7. Maybe there are a few more hiding in other ruins, but they're still a dead species. Boram felt frustrated. What if they're not dead? What if some humans survived and they're more advanced now? What if they've been watching us? From empty mining stations in dead space. Kang Min shook his head. Boram, you're a good surveyor, but you're letting your imagination run wild. I'm assigning you to catalog the Deneb system ruins next. Forget about Kepler Station. That night, Boram couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the perfect circuits, the mysterious beacon, the feeling that she had been watched while exploring the station. In her small quarters, she activated her personal computer and started researching. She found reports from other surveyors, strange power readings in dead systems, missing equipment from abandoned human installations, survey drones that disappeared without explanation. Each incident was small and easily dismissed, but together, they formed a pattern. Boram created a map showing all the anomalies. They weren't random. They formed a line that moved slowly across the galaxy toward the ruins of human space. She sent a coded message to Yuna, an Altarian intelligence analyst she had met at a conference. Yuna was smart and suspicious. If anyone would listen to Boram's theory, it would be her. Yuna responded the next day. Meet me at the neutral station Deep Haven. Bring all your data. I think you found something important. Deep Haven was a small trading post at the border between Altarian and Keth space. Boram took a passenger ship there, telling Kang Min she needed a vacation. The station was crowded with merchants, travelers, and information brokers from dozens of species. Yuna met her at a quiet bar in the station's lower levels. The Altarian woman was thin and pale, with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore civilian clothes, but Boram could tell she was military. Show me what you found, Yuna said without introduction. Boram spread her data files across the table. The beacon, the survey reports, the pattern of anomalies moving across space. Yuna studied everything carefully. She asked detailed questions. About the tool marks, the circuit modifications, the beacon's frequency. After an hour, she sat back and looked worried. "Bo-Ram, I've been tracking similar incidents for months. My superiors told me to stop. They said I was wasting time chasing ghosts." "But you didn't stop," Bo-Ram said. "No, because the incidents are getting more frequent and more obvious." Yuna activated a holographic display above the table. "Look at this." The display showed the galactic rim, where wild space met civilized systems. Red dots marked the locations of strange readings, missing equipment, and unexplained energy signatures. "These incidents follow shipping routes," Yuna explained. "They avoid military patrols. They target isolated facilities that nobody visits often. Someone is moving through our space very carefully, very quietly." Bo-Ram stared at the pattern. "Moving toward what?" Yuna touched the display, and it zoomed in on a section of space near the galactic core. The area was marked with warning symbols and radiation warnings. "The ruins of the Sol system," Yuna said quietly. "What's left of Earth and the human home? Worlds. Why would anyone go there? It's been dead for centuries." "I don't know. But whatever's moving through our space, it's not random. It has a purpose. And I think it might be connected to humanity." Bo-Ram felt a chill. "You think humans are still alive out there?" "I think something that was once human is still alive," Yuna corrected. "And I think it's coming home." They sat in silence for a moment, looking at the data. Around them, the bar was full of alien voices talking about trade, politics, and the small problems of civilized life. None of them knew that something was moving in the dark between the stars, following paths that led back to humanity's grave. "What do we do now?" Bo-Ram asked. Yuna gathered up the data files. "We find out what's really out there, before it finds us." Outside Deep Haven Station, in the empty space between worlds, a small ship watched and waited. Its hull was smooth and dark, invisible to most scanners. Inside, figures that had once been human studied the meeting between the Keth surveyor and the Altarian analyst. They had been careful for so long, but now it was almost time to reveal themselves. The ship turned toward the galactic core and disappeared into hyperspace, leaving no trace it had ever been there. Han Sol was fixing a broken sensor array when reality changed around him. He had been working the night shift at Outpost Meridian for 6 years. The monitoring station sat at the edge of civilized space, watching for pirates, smugglers, and anything else that might threaten the trade routes. It was boring work, but Han Sol liked the quiet. The sensor array was mounted outside the station's hull. Han Sol wore a bulky worksuit and moved slowly in the vacuum of space. His tools floated around, him on magnetic tethers. Earth hung in the distance like a dirty brown marble, dead and forgotten. "Han Sol, are you getting strange readings on your end?" The voice in his helmet belonged to Mei Ri, the duty officer inside the station. "Define strange," Han Sol replied, tightening a connection with his plasma wrench. "The deep space scanners are picking up massive objects in the void between Kepler and Vega systems. But when I try to focus on them, they disappear." Han Sol looked up from his work. The void between star systems was supposed to be empty. Nothing. Lived out there except cosmic dust and radiation. "How massive?" he asked. "Ship-sized. Maybe bigger. The computer says they're moving but not using any kind of propulsion we recognize." Han Sol finished his repairs and pushed himself back toward the station's airlock. Something was wrong with Mei Ri's voice. She sounded scared. Inside the station, Mei Ri was staring at her displays with wide eyes. She was young, maybe 25, with black hair tied back in a regulation bun. Her hands shook slightly as she pointed at the sensor readings. "Look at this," she said. "The objects appear for a few seconds, then vanish completely. They're not, cloaking themselves. They're actually not there, then they are there, then they're gone again." Han Sol studied the sensor logs. The readings showed objects the size of buildings moving through empty space at impossible speeds. But the energy signatures were all wrong. Instead of heat and electromagnetic radiation, the sensors detected something else, something that bent space around it. Could it be equipment failure? Han Sol asked. That's what I thought at first. But I've run full diagnostics 3 times. Everything checks out. Mary touched her screen, highlighting a section of data. And Han Sol, the objects are getting closer. Han Sol felt cold sweat on his forehead. Outpost Meridian was supposed to be safe. Nothing dangerous ever happened at monitoring stations. Send a report to command, he said. Let them decide what to do. Mayree's fingers moved across her control panel, preparing the transmission. But before she could send it, every alarm in the station started screaming. What's happening? Han Sol shouted over the noise. Mayree's face went white. The objects. They're right outside the station. All around us. Han Sol looked at the external cameras. Space looked normal. Stars, cosmic dust, the distant glow of nearby systems. Nothing else. But the sensors told a different story. According to the instruments, Outpost Meridian was surrounded by structures the size of cities, structures that existed in the same space as the station, but somehow didn't interfere with it. This is impossible, Mayree whispered. The lights in the control room flickered. The air recycling systems made strange sounds. Han Sol could feel something pressing against his mind, like a voice trying to speak but using no words. Mayree, send that distress signal. Now! Mayree's hands flew over her controls, but the communication system wouldn't respond. I can't get a signal out. Something's blocking our transmissions. The pressure in Han Sol's head got stronger. Images flashed through his thoughts. Cities floating in space, ships that moved like living things, beings that looked human but weren't, not anymore. Han Sol, look at the screens. Mayree pointed at the main display. The external cameras were showing something new, space around. The station was changing, folding in on itself like origami made of light and shadow. The stars twisted into new patterns. The void filled with structures that shouldn't exist. And through it all, Han Sol could see ships. Beautiful, terrible ships that seemed to be made of crystallized thought and living metal. They moved without engines, turned without thrusters, and existed in more dimensions than human eyes could see. Who are they? Mayree asked in a small voice. Before Han Sol could answer, one of the ships moved closer to the station. It was huge, maybe 10 times the size of Outpost Meridian, but it seemed to barely touch normal space. Han Sol could see through it, like looking at a reflection in deep water. A voice spoke inside the control room, not through the speakers, but directly into their minds. We are sorry. You were not supposed to see this. The voice was calm, sad, and somehow familiar. It spoke with an accent Han Sol couldn't place, but the words felt like they came from someone who had once been human. Who are you? Han Sol asked aloud. We are what humanity became when we learned to survive. Mayree grabbed Han Sol's arm. Her face was full of fear and wonder. The sensors are going crazy. Whatever's out there, it's affecting the fabric of space itself. Han Sol looked at the readings. The instruments showed energy levels that shouldn't be possible. Matter and energy were behaving like they followed different rules of physics. Why are you here? Han Sol asked the empty air. We are going home, to the place where we began. But first we must prepare the way. The ship outside the station began to glow with soft, warm light. Han Sol felt his fear melting away, replaced by a strange sense of peace. Prepare for what? For our return. The galaxy has forgotten us. That will change soon. The light from the ship grew brighter. Han Sol could feel reality shifting around him, like he was falling through dimensions he didn't know existed. Wait! Mayree called out. Don't hurt us. We're just monitor station operators. We don't matter to anyone. You matter to us, the voice replied gently. All life matters, But you cannot remain here. You cannot see what comes next. What comes next? Han Solo asked, but the voice didn't answer. The light filled the control room, warm and soft and final. Han Solo felt himself dissolving into something larger, something that connected him to Mei Ri and to the beings in the ships and to every living thing in the galaxy. The last thing he remembered was a feeling of incredible peace. 2 days later, Captain Hai Jin's cruiser Star's Edge dropped out of hyperspace at Outpost Meridian's coordinates. The Altarian Defense Force had received an automated distress signal from the monitoring station, followed by complete silence. Hai Jin was a veteran officer with 20 years of deep space experience. She had seen pirates, smugglers, equipment, failures, and solar storms. But she had never seen anything like what her sensors found at the Meridian position. "Captain, you need to see this," her science officer reported. Hai Jin joined him at the sensor station. The readings were impossible to understand. Where Outpost Meridian should have been, there was nothing. Not debris, not wreckage, not even cosmic dust. Just a perfect sphere of empty space, as if someone had reached into reality and scooped out everything that existed there. "How big is the affected area?" Hai Jin asked. "Exactly 50 kilometers in diameter. The edges are perfectly smooth. Space-time is normal outside the sphere, but inside..." The science officer shook his head. "Inside there's nothing, not even quantum foam." Hai Jin stared at the readings. In her 20 years of service, she had never seen anything that could completely erase matter from existence. Any sign of what caused this? Residual energy signatures that don't match anything in our databases. The readings suggest technology that operates on principles we don't understand. Jin ordered her ship to move closer to the empty sphere. Through the viewports, she could see the sharp edge where normal space ended and nothingness began. It was like looking at a hole cut in reality itself. "Captain, I'm detecting similar energy signatures in other parts of this system," her tactical officer reported. "Faint traces, but they follow a path leading toward the galactic core." "The core?" Hai Jin frowned. "Nothing lives out there except radiation and dead stars." "Yes, ma'am. But something passed through here recently. Something with technology far beyond our understanding." Jin made her decision. "Send a priority message to Fleet Command, full military encryption. Tell them we've found evidence of an unknown force with capabilities that exceed anything in our databases. And tell them..." She paused, looking at the impossible sphere of nothing where her people had died. "Tell them it's moving toward the ruins of human space." Admiral Do Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship Sovereign Dawn and watched his worst nightmare become real. The enemy fleet had appeared without warning above Nexus Prime, capital world of the Altarian Republic. One moment, the orbital sensors showed empty space. The next moment, they showed ships, hundreds of ships. "How many vessels are we looking at?" Do Hyun asked his tactical officer. "Sensors count 412 distinct contacts, sir. But the readings are..." "Strange. Some ships appear to exist in multiple locations at once. Others seem to phase in and out of our dimension." Do Hyun studied the main display. The alien vessels were unlike anything in the military databases. They were beautiful and terrifying, with hulls that seemed to be grown instead of built. Their surfaces rippled like liquid metal, and they moved without any visible engines or thrusters. "Are they attacking?" Do Hyun asked. "No, sir. They're just waiting." The Altarian home fleet surrounded Nexus Prime in a defensive formation. 150 warships, the pride of the Republic Navy. Do Hyun had trained his whole life to protect his people from threats like this. But he had never imagined a threat quite like this. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead enemy vessel," the communications officer reported. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and Do Hyun found himself looking at a face that shocked him to his core. The being on the screen was humanoid, but clearly not entirely human anymore. Its skin had a faint metallic sheen, and its eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that made Do-hyun's instruments react strangely. "Greetings," the being said in perfect Altarian. "I am Commander Park of the Transcendent Fleet. We have come home." Do-hyun stepped forward. "This is Admiral Do-hyun of the Altarian Defense Force. You are in violation of Altarian space. Identify yourselves and state your intentions." Commander Park smiled sadly. "We are what remains of humanity. We have been gone for a long time, but now we have returned to reclaim what was once ours." "Humanity is extinct," Do-hyun replied. "The last humans died centuries ago." "We did not die, Admiral. We evolved." Do-hyun felt a chill. The being on his screen had human features, but everything else about it was wrong. Too perfect, too powerful, too aware of things beyond normal understanding. "Prove you are human," Do-hyun demanded. Commander Park closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, Do-hyun could see something that might have been sadness. 300 years ago, my name was Lieutenant Jin Park of the Earth Defense Force. I was born in Seoul. I liked classical music and old Earth novels. I had a sister named Hae-won who made the best kimchi in the colony. I died fighting the harvesters above Jupiter, and then I learned that death is not the end. The bridge around Do-hyun fell silent. Every officer was staring at the screen with a mixture of fear and wonder. "What did you become?" Do-hyun asked quietly. "We became what we needed to become to survive. The harvesters were not the greatest threat in the galaxy, Admiral. They were just the beginning. There are things in the dark between galaxies that would destroy all life if they could. We learned to fight them." Commander Park gestured, and the space around his ship began to change. Reality twisted and folded, showing glimpses of other dimensions where different laws of physics applied. "We made contact with the architects, beings from a higher dimension who have been fighting the darkness for eons. They offered us transformation in exchange for alliance. We accepted." Do-hyun watched in horror as the demonstration continued. The human ships moved through space like they were swimming through water, bending distance and time to their will. "What do you want from us?" Do-hyun asked. "Nothing that you are not willing to give. We do not come as conquerors. We come as protectors. The darkness is stirring again, Admiral. It knows we have returned, and it will send new horrors to test us. Your people will need protection." On the tactical display, Do-hyun could see his fleet's weapons systems struggling to lock onto the human ships. Every time his officers tried to target them, the vessels seemed to slip sideways into dimensions his sensors couldn't track. "And if we refuse your protection?" Commander Park looked genuinely sorry. "Then you will face the darkness alone, as we once did. You will learn, as we learned, that there are worse things than extinction." Do-hyun made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He ordered his weapons to fire. Every ship in the Altarian fleet opened fire at once. Energy beams, particle cannons, fusion missiles, and gravity bombs erupted toward the human vessels in a coordinated attack that should have destroyed anything in space. The weapons passed through the human ships without effect. "I am sorry you chose to test us," Commander Park said calmly, "but we understand your fear." One of the human ships moved forward. It was smaller than the others, maybe the size of a cruiser. But when it approached the Altarian flagship, Do-hyun felt reality bend around his vessel. "Sir, all weapon systems are offline," his tactical officer reported in a panicked voice. "Engines are down. Life support is failing." But Do-hyun wasn't in danger. The human ship wasn't attacking. It was demonstrating power so far beyond Altarian technology that resistance was meaningless. "We could destroy your entire fleet without effort," Commander Park explained. "We could turn your planet into cosmic dust with a thought. But we are still human in the ways that matter. We do not destroy life. We protect it." The Altarian systems came back online. The weapons, the engines, the life support, everything working perfectly again, better than before. How? Do-hyun whispered. We exist in multiple dimensions now, Admiral. Your weapons can only affect objects that exist entirely in your reality. We are here, but we are also elsewhere. We are real, but we are also possible. We are human, but we are also something more. Another ship joined the conversation. The captain was a woman who looked to be in her 30s, with silver hair and eyes that held the wisdom of centuries. I am Captain Mi-young, formerly Dr. Mi-young Lee of the Earth Science Foundation. Admiral, your people are not ready for the truth of what exists beyond your small corner of the galaxy. But ready or not, the truth is coming. She gestured toward the edge of the star system. Do-hyun's sensors detected movement in deep space, dark shapes that seemed to absorb light and energy. Harvester scouts, Mi-young explained. They have been following us, trying to understand what we became. Soon they will attack this system, hoping to learn our weaknesses. Do-hyun felt his blood freeze. The Harvesters had been humanity's nightmare. If they were returning. Watch, Commander Park said. The human fleet moved as one, flowing through space like a school of fish. They surrounded the approaching Harvester. Scouts in a formation that existed in 3 dimensions and several others that Do-hyun couldn't perceive. What happened next lasted only seconds, but Do-hyun would remember it forever. The Harvester ships simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not disabled, but erased from reality so completely that even the memory of them seemed to fade. The creatures that once threatened to devour humanity now flee from us, Commander Park said. We have become their nightmare, as they once were ours. Do-hyun stared at the empty space where the Harvester scouts had been. His hands shook as he realized what he was seeing. You're not human anymore, he said. We are more than human, Commander Park corrected. But we remember what it was like to be afraid, to be small, to face extinction. That is why we have returned, to ensure that no species faces the darkness alone. Mi-young leaned forward on her screen. Admiral, your people and the Keth and all? The other species in this galaxy have lived in peace for centuries because the greatest threats were sleeping. That peace is ending. Evolution or extinction are your choices now. What kind of evolution? The same kind we chose. Partnership with forces beyond your current understanding. Expansion into dimensions you cannot yet perceive. The ability to exist as both matter and energy, both individual and collective, both mortal and eternal. Do-hyun thought of his family on Nexus Prime below. His children who played in gardens under alien suns. His wife who taught literature at the university. All the ordinary, precious life of his people. And if we choose differently? Commander Park's expression was infinitely sad. Then we will protect you for as long as we can. But protection from the outside is not the same as strength from within. Eventually, every species must choose its own path forward. The transmission ended, leaving Do-hyun alone with his fleet and his impossible choices. Around him, his officers waited for orders that could determine the future of every living being in the galaxy. Above them, the ships of transcendent humanity waited with patience that could last forever. Sung-ho stood at the edge of existence and remembered being human. The leader of transcendent humanity existed in 17 dimensions at once, but part of him remained in the simple 3-dimensional space where his conversation with the galaxy would take place. Around him, his ship Eternal Dawn floated above the capital worlds of 3 different species, having conversations that were happening simultaneously across multiple sectors of space. He had been human once, born in Busan, raised on Mars, trained as a physicist on Europa. That was before the Harvesters came, before everything changed. Now he was something else, something more, something that could exist as pure consciousness, as living energy, as probability itself. But in his core, the part that made him Sung-ho, He was still the young scientist who had wanted to understand how the universe worked. Today, the universe would learn what humanity had become. "Sir, the Altarian and Keth fleets are requesting a formal meeting," reported his second-in-command. Mi Young had been a quantum physicist before transcendence. Now she was something like a living equation, able to manipulate reality through mathematics that existed beyond normal understanding. "Where would they like to meet?" Sung Ho asked. "Neutral space, near the Haven 7 system. They want the last baseline humans to witness what we say." Sung Ho smiled. Sujin and her people were still alive on their dying world, still hoping that other humans would return. They deserved to see what their species had become. "Arrange the meeting. And Mi Young, make sure our ships appear in normal space this time. Let them see us clearly." The meeting took place in the space between stars, where 4 fleets came together to decide the future of the galaxy. The Altarian Republic brought their finest warships. The Keth Consortium sent their most advanced vessels. The minor species. Alliance gathered their scattered forces, and humanity brought ships that looked like crystallized dreams. Sujin watched from Haven 7's observation dome as the impossible vessels appeared in her system's outer space. She had waited 60 years for this moment, believing against all evidence that her people still lived somewhere among the stars. She had been right, but the humans who had returned were nothing like the ones who had left. "People of the galaxy," Sung Ho began, his voice carried by quantum fields to every ship in the assembled fleets. "I am Sung Ho, once human, now something more. I speak for the transcendent, the beings you once knew as humanity." Admiral Do Hyun's voice came through the communication array. "What happened to your species? Where have you been for 3 centuries?" Sung Ho gestured, and space around the fleets filled with images. The history of humanity's transformation played out in 3-dimensional holograms that showed truth more clearly than any words. When the harvesters overwhelmed our worlds, we faced extinction. But in our darkest hour, we made contact with the architects, beings from a higher dimension who had been fighting threats like the harvesters for millions of years. The images showed the final battle for Earth. Human ships burning in space. Cities consumed by creatures that ate reality itself. The desperate last transmission from Earth Command, broadcast to every human colony. "Find another way. Survive." The architects offered us partnership. They would teach us to exist beyond the limits of normal space and time. In return, we would become their champions against the darkness that waits between galaxies. More images appeared. Humans changing, evolving, becoming something that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. Learning to manipulate matter and energy through will alone. Discovering that consciousness was not limited to biological brains. The transformation was not easy, Sung Ho continued. Many of us were lost in the process. We had to let go of everything we thought we were and become something entirely new. But we survived, and in surviving, we became powerful enough to protect not just ourselves, but all life in the galaxy. Boram's voice came from the Keth fleet. "Why did you hide from us? Why didn't you tell us you were still alive?" "Because you were not ready," Mi Young answered. Her ship moved closer to the assembled fleets, and everyone could see her through its transparent hull. She looked human, but she also looked like living starlight. "We needed time to master our new nature, and you needed time to develop as species without humanity's influence." "But now something has changed," Sung Ho said. The images around them shifted, showing dark spaces between galaxies where ancient evils stirred. The harvesters were not the greatest threat. They were merely scouts for something far worse. The devourers are awakening. They are beings that exist to consume all life, all matter, all possibility itself. The assembled fleets fell silent as they watched images of creatures that existed beyond nightmare. Things that could eat entire star systems, that could devour time itself, that could unmake the fundamental forces that held reality together. "The architects have fought them before," Sung Ho explained. "Always they have lost. Reality itself, is not strong enough to resist the devourer's hunger. But now we have something new. Humanity's gift to the universe. What gift? Du-hyun asked. Sung-ho smiled, and for a moment he looked exactly like the young physicist he had once been. Hope, stubbornness, the absolute refusal to surrender, no matter how impossible the odds become. These are not just human traits. They are forces of nature themselves, and we have learned to make them real. Mi-young moved her ship next to a harvester vessel that had been stalking the gathered fleets. The parasite creature was huge, with tentacles that could crack planets and a mouth that could swallow moons. She destroyed it with a thought. The creatures that once hunted humanity now flee when they sense our presence. Mi-young said calmly, "We have become what they fear most. Prey that learned to bite back." On Haven 7, Soo-jin pressed her hands against the observation dome's glass. Through her tears, she could see the ships of her transformed people spreading across the star field like flowers made of light. "My grandmother was right," she whispered to Jin-woo, who stood beside her. "Humans did explore every star in the galaxy. We just had to become something else to do it." Sung-ho's voice became gentler as he continued. "We offer the galaxy a choice. You can join us in transcendence. Learn to exist beyond the limits of matter and energy. Become partners with the architects in the defense of all life." "What would that cost us?" asked the representative of the Minor Species Alliance. "Everything you are now, and everything you could become instead." Sung-ho paused. Transcendence is not evolution. It is transformation into something entirely new. You would retain your memories, your personalities, your capacity to love and hope and dream, but your bodies, your limitations, your connection to normal reality would be gone forever. The fleets considered this in silence. The choice was impossible. Remain as they were and face cosmic threats they could never defeat, or change so completely that they would no longer be the same species. "What if we choose neither?" Do-hyun asked finally. "Then we will protect you," Sung-ho replied simply. "For as long as we can, for as long as the universe exists, you will live your lives in the dimensions you understand, and we will stand guard in the dimensions you cannot perceive." "Why would you do that for us?" Sung-ho's image shimmered, and for a moment the assembled fleets could see him as he truly was. A being of pure consciousness, wrapped in quantum possibility, existing in 17 dimensions, but choosing to appear in only 3 so they could understand him. Because we remember what it was like to be small and afraid and mortal. We remember loving things we could lose. We remember the weight of time and the fear of ending. These memories make us stronger than the architects, stronger than the devourers, stronger than anything else in the universe. Those memories make us still human, despite everything we have become. The meeting continued for hours, but the real decision had already been made. Some species would choose transcendence. Others would choose to remain as they were. All would be protected by humanity, the species that had refused to die and had instead become something that could protect all life from the darkness beyond the stars. As the fleets prepared to return to their home worlds, Sung-ho opened a private channel to Haven 7. "Soo-jin," he said gently, "would you like to come home?" On the dying world, the old woman looked up at the ships of her transformed people. She thought of her grandmother's stories about Earth, about green forests and blue, oceans and cities that touch the sky. "Where is home now?" she asked. "Everywhere," Sung-ho replied. "In every dimension, in every possibility, in every moment where life chooses hope over despair. We are humanity, Soo-jin. We go everywhere." Soo-jin smiled and took Jin-woo's hand. Around them, the other survivors of Haven 7 gathered at the observation dome, watching their people's ships fill the sky with light. They had waited 300 years for this moment. The moment when humanity came home, not as the species that had left, but as the guardians they had chosen to become. In the deep space between galaxies, ancient evils stirred and felt something new in the universe. Something that had learned to turn extinction into transcendence, defeat into victory, and despair into infinite hope. The Devourers had never encountered anything like humanity before. They were about to learn why that was a problem.